The notion of personal identity is something we rarely question. We wake up every day as the same person we went to sleep as. We eat, think, and act with a singular consciousness that governs our behavior. Our body is ours alone, under the firm control of one distinct self. But is this assumption entirely accurate, or is it simply a product of our inability to conceive of any alternative? What if, in fact, two people could coexist within the same body? This question challenges our deepest intuitions about consciousness and identity. This video aims to unravel the intricate layers of this profound question by exploring various philosophical and neuroscientific perspectives. Through fascinating real-life cases, we will examine whether the boundaries of personal identity are as rigid as they seem, or far more fluid and mysterious. The concept that more than one consciousness can reside in a single body seems impossible at first glance. We assume that our identity, our thoughts, memories, and emotions, is tied to our unique brain, and by extension, our body. From childhood to adulthood, we think of ourselves as a single, continuous self, evolving over time but never fragmenting into separate identities. However, this assumption has been challenged by studies on split-brain patients whose experiences raise the tantalizing possibility of multiple consciousnesses coexisting within one body. Split-brain patients are individuals who have undergone a medical procedure to sever the corpus callosum, the bundle of nerves that connects the two hemispheres of the brain. This procedure, typically performed to treat severe epilepsy, isolates the left and right hemispheres, preventing them from communicating with each other. Astonishingly, this separation can lead to behaviors that suggest the presence of two independent minds. In these patients, each hemisphere appears capable of acting autonomously. For instance, one hand might try to button a shirt while the other unbuttons it, as if two wills are at odds within the same person. The left hemisphere, which controls the right hand and is typically associated with language, may respond to questions logically, while the right hemisphere, controlling the left hand, may act on intuition or impulse. Such behaviors suggest that, after the corpus callosum is severed, two distinct consciousnesses emerge, each governing a different aspect of the person's experience. This phenomenon has led some philosophers, like Roland Puccetti, to propose that these patients possess not one, but two independent minds. The split in the brain's structure results in a split in consciousness, raising the question, if two independent consciousnesses can exist in the same body, is it possible that two distinct individuals could, too? Roland Puccetti, a philosopher and author, takes the case of split-brain patients as evidence that consciousness is not necessarily a unified experience. In his view, the brain's hemispheres can operate as two separate entities, each with its own thoughts, desires, and sense of self. When the hemispheres are severed, he argues, two independent selves emerge, each capable of controlling one half of the body. But what if the two halves of the brain had been functioning as distinct minds all along, and the severing merely revealed what was already there? To illustrate his point, Puccetti offers a thought experiment involving a young girl who undergoes a split-brain procedure. Before the surgery, the girl is one person with a unified sense of identity. After the surgery, however, she begins to live two completely distinct lives. During the day, her left hemisphere controls her actions, allowing her to attend school, interact with friends, and pursue her goals. But at night, when she sleeps, her right hemisphere takes over, guiding her through an entirely different existence, perhaps one filled with dreams, subconscious desires, or even alternate memories. In this scenario, the girl's body is home to two separate individuals. Each hemisphere represents a distinct person with its own experiences and memories, yet they share the same physical form. Neither is aware of the other, and yet both exist simultaneously within the same body. This leads us to a provocative question. Is the girl still a single person, or has she become two individuals trapped within one body? The implications of Puccetti's thought experiment are staggering. If two minds can coexist in one body, then our understanding of personal identity, long thought to be tied to a single body, may need to be re-examined. Perhaps identity is not as fixed as we believe, and the boundaries between one person and another are far more porous than they appear. Philosopher Derek Parfit takes the idea of dual consciousness to an even more radical level. In one of his famous thought experiments, Parfit imagines a person with the ability to voluntarily split their consciousness at will. With a simple gesture, perhaps the raising of an eyebrow, this individual can divide their awareness into two separate streams, each capable of perceiving and interacting with the world independently of the other. In this scenario, the person can live two completely different lives, switching between them as easily as flipping a light switch. One consciousness might be focused on solving a complex mathematical problem, while the other engages in a casual conversation with a friend. These two consciousnesses, while inhabiting the same body, would operate independently, each with its own thoughts, desires, and memories. Parfit's thought experiment challenges the very notion of a unified self. If consciousness can be split at will, then what does it mean to be one person? Is the individual who controls the body still the same person when their consciousness is divided, or have they become two distinct people? And if so, what happens to the concept of personal responsibility when two consciousnesses share the same body? Imagine, for example, that one consciousness commits a crime while the other is completely unaware of it. Who is to blame? Can the innocent consciousness be held responsible for the actions of its counterpart? Or should we view the two consciousnesses as separate individuals, each accountable for their own actions? These questions challenge our legal and moral frameworks, forcing us to reconsider the relationship between mind, body, and responsibility. While Parfit's voluntary split of consciousness is an intriguing hypothetical, he also explores a more grounded scenario involving a brain transplant. Imagine two individuals, Frank and John, who are involved in a catastrophic accident that leaves both of their brains severely damaged. To save their lives, doctors perform an unprecedented procedure. They transplant portions of both Frank's and John's brains into a single surviving body. After the surgery, Frank and John both regain consciousness, but now they must share the same physical form. Each retains their own memories, desires, and sense of identity, but they must learn to coexist within one body. This raises a host of questions. Who controls the body at any given time? How do Frank and John navigate their conflicting desires and goals? Can they communicate with one another, or are they doomed to a life of mutual frustration and confusion? The case of Frank and John presents a compelling argument for the possibility of dual consciousness in a single body. If two distinct individuals can inhabit the same physical form after a brain transplant, then it is conceivable that a similar phenomenon could occur under other circumstances. Frank and John might learn to share their body, but their experience challenges the conventional understanding of what it means to be a person. One of the most intriguing aspects of this scenario is the question of identity. Are Frank and John still the same people they were before the accident, or has the transplant fundamentally altered their identities? If two people can coexist in one body, does that body belong to either of them, or is it now a shared space, a kind of dual citizenship of consciousness? Philosopher Keith Mills takes the idea of dual consciousness even further by exploring the concept of bodily fission. Imagine a person who, through some as yet unknown process, physically splits into two separate bodies. Before the split, the individual experiences two parallel streams of consciousness, each capable of independent thought and action. After the split, these two streams of consciousness are housed in separate bodies, each with its own distinct existence. In this scenario, the two bodies share a common past, but now lead separate lives. Each retains the psychological continuity of the original person, meaning that they both have the same memories, desires, and sense of identity. However, they are now two separate individuals, capable of making their own choices and following their own paths. What makes this scenario so fascinating is that it suggests the coexistence of two people within one body prior to the fission. If both streams of consciousness existed before the split, then it follows that two individuals were already present in the same body. The act of fission simply allowed them to express their individuality in separate forms. This thought experiment raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness and personal identity. If two people can coexist in one body, does that mean that identity is not tied to the body at all? Is it possible that multiple consciousnesses could inhabit a single form, each maintaining its own psychological continuity? And if so, what does this mean for our understanding of selfhood and individuality? Mills's exploration of bodily fission leads to an important conclusion. Personal identity is not defined by the body, but by psychological continuity. In other words, what makes someone themselves is not their physical form, but the continuity of their thoughts, their memories, and experiences over time. If two consciousnesses can coexist in one body, each maintaining its own psychological continuity, then it is possible for two people to inhabit the same physical space. In the end, if two people can indeed share one body, what does that mean for our understanding of selfhood? Are we more than just the sum of our memories and desires? Or is personal identity something far more complex, something that transcends the physical form and exists in the continuity of consciousness itself? The answers to these questions remain elusive, but one thing is clear: the exploration of multiple consciousnesses opens up a world of possibilities, both thrilling and unsettling, for our understanding of what it means to be human.